Going baseball fans, it's Wardy here, and we're back at it with a jam-packed latest Mets news and rumors live show. And I'll be shortly accompanied by a YouTuber that many of you guys know in the baseball space, especially my Mets fans. That is Marc Luino, aka Giraffe Neck Marc. We will be bringing him in a little bit later in the show, just 15-20 minutes or so into this one, everybody. And we're going to further highlight together the latest going on here for the Mets and their current pursuit of rookie Sasaki. How positive or negative do things appear to look on that front that we're going to start the show with? From there, we're going to get into Alonso, Bregman, and yes, Alex Verdugo, as the Mets are actively involved in his market too. And yes, I know you're probably wondering, Wardy, why in God's name are the Mets going after Alex Verdugo potentially? Don't worry, we're going to touch on it all together with each and every one of you in the live chat. I appreciate it. But everyone watching live, thank you so much for smashing that like and subscribe on your way in. Shout out to BetUS, America's #1 sportsbook that has you covered all your sports betting needs, but more on them later on the show, folks. You guys are already spamming, doing exactly what I want you to do, so I really won't waste much time other than wanting to give more opportunity to everyone first chiming in. So folks, you guys can continue to spam, that's fine, but I'm not going to pick the winner just yet. I'm going to wait at least a couple minutes into the live stream, make sure that we have a certain amount of viewers, as we're already at right around 500, but once we get to a certain plateau where I feel like there's a fair chance for a good amount of people, then I'm going to randomly select. And then if you guys did not get a chance on winning the Juan Soto jersey giveaway that we're about to do, I apologize, but please know that you got to make sure you're chiming into the content, because that's why we have a lot of people in the live chat right now spamming. And all you guys got to do for your chance to enter the Juan Soto jersey giveaway that is literally happening right now in just a mere minute or two, and that is simply by making sure you're subscribed to the platform and chiming into the live chat. We have done this for countless giveaways in the past. We've given away a custom Wardy jersey where I signed it for a fan, which was really cool. Shout out to you, Levi, if you know, you know. We've also given away a WardyNYM signed jersey in the past, Francisco Alvarez authentic jersey, Francisco Lindor, you name it. And now we're giving away Soto. As you guys can see, this is not the jersey I'm personally giving away because this is my own. This is a custom eBay majestic Juan Soto Mets jersey that you guys can't just get anywhere. If you go on eBay, though, I'm sure you can find it. It won't be that difficult. I actually told the name of the eBay seller in my live stream yesterday because it's so nice. Custom made Mets jerseys the authentic way. Some of the best ones you can get. But I still want to make sure I gave away a Juan Soto jersey to one of you guys, so I'll be getting that from MLB Shop, and it'll likely not get to your destination until the end of the month, because when I ordered one from my mom for the holidays, I saw that just the pre-order in general wasn't going to process through until later in January, so it might take a little bit to get your Juan Soto jersey, but rest assured it's worthwhile, and I appreciate every single one of you guys for taking the time to chime in live and replay. So folks, with that being said, I don't want to waste any more time. Let's get into this now, and let's randomly select our Juan Soto jersey giveaway winner before we get into everything else having to do in Metsland, from Sasaki to Alonso. 9 years. Yeah, we're going to talk about that nonsense a little bit more. Bregman, my optimism, pessimism level on that front, and the bullpen. We'll touch a little bit more on Tanner Scott, but I'm going to highlight more on that tomorrow, where the man that broke the news that the Mets met with Tanner Scott earlier today from our video. If you guys didn't check it out, make sure you do. Will Salmon of The Athletic will be our special guest in tomorrow's live show, so make sure you guys are chiming into that. Leo, thank you so much for becoming a member on the platform. Happy to have you. My man John earlier, thank you so much for the membership as well. That was beyond appreciated. And Rail, thank you so much for the $5 donation. Sadly, that isn't going to win you the jersey, but I appreciate the effort, and I certainly appreciate the donation. Rail says, Soto jersey, please. I know you want it. I do. I get it. CEO with the $10 holla, great member, says, jersey or not, I'm here for the Mets news, brother. Keep up, keep being the best. LFGM, let's effing go, Wardy. I appreciate you, Tio. Thank you so much for being a G on the platform. And as a further thank you for 30,000 subscribers, everybody, and the kind words, I see them endlessly in the chat. To my replay viewers in the comments down below, simply thank you. And now, folks, let's do the drum roll, please. Let's get that Juan Soto jersey giveaway going. Everyone in the live chat, spam in the comments right now. I would say just spam me, because I'm not going to click on a comment that is irrelevant to what we're doing right now. So spam in the chat, everybody. If you guys want to win a Juan Soto Mets jersey, drum roll, please. Spam in the live show. I'll be clicking on one random comment in just mere seconds, everybody. Get it locked and loaded. Get it ready. Let me go on my phone so I can get ready to click a random comment, and let's do this one, baby. Okay. Okay, folks, the spam is on. I repeat, the spam is on. Let's get it going, baby. And a 3, a 2, and a 1. Okay, folks, we have it. Oh, no. Wow. Scott H., you are the winner. Shout out to Scott H. in the chat. You are officially the Juan Soto jersey giveaway winner. But the reason why I'm saying wow is because I know Scott H. is a loyal follower on the platform. They follow me on X. They interact with me fairly often. I love when I see giveaway winners beat people that, in my opinion, not that no one else deserves it, but people that I know have been following the platform for a bit. Scott H., congratulations. Everybody, can we please get some hype and love in the chat to Scott H., who is the official Juan Soto jersey giveaway winner. Again, you're going to get boos in the chat for everyone that didn't win. I understand, and I apologize. If I could give away hundreds of Juan Soto jerseys, I would do that right now. But Scott H., congratulations on becoming the jersey giveaway winner. If you could please DM me on X or hit me up in my email, which is in the description of the live show here, that'd be greatly appreciated. That way I can just get your information, send over your jersey size, your address, and I will get you hooked up, and hopefully you'll get it before the month's end, if not early into February. Congratulations, Scott. You love to see it. Scotty knows. He damn right he knows. Congratulations once more, my friend. Very happy to see you win the jersey, brother. But all right, guys, if you want to get in on giveaways like that, don't worry, we will be doing more jersey giveaways, more signed baseball giveaways, and more different types of giveaways throughout the year, including WardyNYM merch once we finally have that unrolled for each and every one of you, because I know people have asked tirelessly since I started the platform, and we still have yet to unveil that. That is long overdue. That goes without saying, everybody, but I appreciate you guys. Thank you again for being... H stands for hater. That's hilarious. I appreciate everyone's kind words in the chat and for being so nice to each other. All right, guys. Let's get into this. Let's talk about Roki Sasaki, right? Because this is a big hot button topic right now. And right before we bring in my man Marc to piggyback off of these Sasaki thoughts, let's get into the news that we just saw transpire over the past day or so. And guys, make sure to smash that like and subscribe button. If you guys could help us get a 300 plus likes in the live show, greatly appreciate it. My replay viewers, help us get a 500. Really does mean a lot. Yoshima with the $5 donation says, congratulations to Scott H. From a former jersey winner on the channel. Enjoy the Soto jersey, brother. Yoshima, can you enlighten me what jersey you won again? Because I don't recall which one the giveaways you in fact won, but I'd love to hear it again. Andrew, thank you so much for the $5 holla. It really does mean a lot. Let's see. Guys, thank you again for the love. It's always appreciated. But now let's talk about Roki Sasaki, because as we saw just over the past couple of days now, everybody, and Chris Ferraro, you know what's up, baby. Corey, how you doing? Appreciate everyone watching live on a replay right now. We saw that apparently, sadly, the widowed wife of Peter Seidler, who sadly is no longer with us, is suing her late husband's brothers-in-law, not being brothers-in-law for Peter, but brothers-in-law for her, over really completely being mishandled since Seidler has passed, now going on for the rest of the family. A lot of things were promised, apparently, from Peter to his wife on how things would be handled on her hands on the organization going forward. And there has apparently been a lot of claims in this 91-page lawsuit. She claims fraud, breach of a fiduciary duty, racism, and a lot more. This is not pretty, and this is not at all good for a San Diego Padres team that's still struggling without having a TV deal. Unfortunately, it's without Peter Seidler, who was a selfless owner and is willing to spend and to spend big, which I certainly admired, especially as a Steve Cohen-ran Mets fan now. I certainly admired Seidler, and I'm grateful to say that I was in attendance back in the 2023 summer to be in San Diego for a series while Seidler was still owner. That was fantastic to see, even though our Mets ended up losing that series. But regardless, everybody, the immediate impact that this has on the Sasaki pursuit really shouldn't be understated. I demand a recount. Julio, thank you so much for the $20 donation. I love that. Sounding like everyone's favorite politician out here. It really does mean a lot. Thank you kindly for that. And again, hope you guys are doing well. Thank you guys for the donations. I appreciate every single one of you greatly. But Sasaki has been long believed as a guy that would love to potentially pair with Yu Darvish and the San Diego Padres if he isn't going to go to an obvious team like the LA Dodgers. Now, what this complete and what is a large, clear, dark cloud over the Padres organization right now, because it's hard to push this aside when it's significant, the claims are real, and it comes from Seidler's widowed wife. So this is a messy situation, a terrible situation that I don't wish on anybody, obviously, but the immediate impact it has on the Padres is nothing short of a negative one. It's hard to envision Roki Sasaki signing with the Padres after this thing is currently happening in this active dispute, in this active lawsuit. It's not a pretty thing. So what does this leave where the Mets and the Dodgers and others stand? Well, simply put, For the Mets, I don't think this hurts their odds. I think this increases their odds, if anything, for Sasaki for obvious reasons. And in the case of when we look at the LA Dodgers, they have been long believed to be the favorite for Roki Sasaki. And I would be lying if I didn't say that I have definitely heard throughout the industry over the past couple days that unfortunately the Dodgers do appear to be the front runner yet again for Sasaki in the sense of the favorite. Not a front runner like the Mets are, but the favorite where they're expected to land him right now. Whether or not that holds true as we reach that span there post January 20th, which is the earliest he'll make a decision based on recent reports that we've seen over the past couple of days. Sasaki to LA is something that we all fear doesn't happen. And honestly, if Joel Wolf, his agent who represents Kodai Senga as well, is at all truthful to talking to the media and saying that he wants a challenge, that he actually has an emphasis on potentially going somewhere where things can get uncomfortable. They need to get uncomfortable. I'm sorry, not that he wouldn't have uncomfortability at all with the Dodgers and getting adjusted to the major league level because he will with any team, but it suggests that the Dodgers would be this thing where you're having a lot of hurdles to get over. It's not that. I think if anything, Sasaki would benefit from being in a far more smooth sailing situation with a big market team like the Dodgers, knowing they have Ohtani, knowing they have Yoshinobu Yamamoto, knowing they have Glasnow, knowing they have Blake Snell, knowing they have all these pieces in their rotation to help piggyback and build off of, along with the talent that they have on the field batting. It goes without saying, Roki Sasaki, I love the chances of hopefully the Mets landing him, but in the case of the Dodgers, they still feel like the favorite until things certainly change on that front, even with Joel Wolf and Roki Sasaki being on record liking the Mets pitching lab a lot and what they're doing under David Stearns, Jeremy Hefner there, now Desi Driscoll, everyone else in company. But before we bring our guy Draft Deck Marc in, because I know Marc is going to be joining in just a second, everybody, let's get into quickly a comment that we just saw. Yoshima, thank you so much for $2 hollow. You won the Beatty jersey. See, I'm not even lying, Yoshima. I forgot we did a Beatty jersey giveaway. That's how many jersey giveaways we have done on the platform. So I'm actually really happy to hear that, as that tells me all I need to know. What was the actual last info on the actual transaction you had for us? John, I'm not sure what you meant by that, John. I apologize unless you're talking to someone else. But regardless, everybody, let's hear from Andy Martino, no matter how much you love or hate him, the rest and why, on the latest regarding Roki and other pursuits at this point in time. And we're going to piggyback off of this with our guy Marc in a second.
As you know it, Andy, on the relief market and how it may pertain to the Mets.
The Mets have some willingness to spend at the top end of the relief market if it's a deal that makes sense for them. As with always with David Stearns, this is about years more than dollars usually, because he has a lot of Steve Cohen's resources at his disposal. So if you look at a guy like Tanner Scott, he's always been rumored to be seeking a 3 or 4 year deal. Well, there might be some willingness there to go high AAV for a shorter-term deal. If you can get Tanner Scott for 2 years at a high number for those 2 years, I could see that as being a fit for the Mets. And I also think that he and those other relievers on the board that we showed, Gary, are going to be guys to watch over the next couple days and week or so. The relief market, the high-end relief market, is going to move faster than the position player market. That could start rolling pretty soon, and the Mets will be there on some of these guys.
And what about, and I mentioned a moment ago, I thought the Mets probably out on starting pitching.
Yeah.
What's your intel say on that?
I think you're just about right about that, Gary. They feel pretty good about where they are with the rotation. For example, Luis Castillo in Seattle is available in trade conversations. Mets have not been involved there on Castillo. And frankly, I'm not hearing a lot of optimism in the industry that the Mets would be the team for Roki Sasaki. So it seems as if what we see now in the rotation depth chart is going to be pretty much what they're rolling into this season with.
So let's just start with what is inaccurate about what Andy Martino just said. And this is, again, nothing personal against Andy. I know he's relaying what he's hearing. And while I was under the initial belief that the Mets were done with their rotation, aside from Sasaki, Jeff Passan has me thinking now otherwise. And I'm sorry, but if we're going to pick between Passan and Martino, even though Martino works with SNY, even though he is really always involved with people in the Mets market of things, he is still not understanding everything. He has still missed on a lot of things, and he knows what he knows. Jeff Passan to go out of his way in a key ESPN Plus article a day ago stating that the Mets are actively shopping for an outfielder, relievers, and another starter tells me all I need to know. The Mets are not done when it comes to trying to add to the rotation. Doesn't mean that they may be done, possibly, But outside of the Roki Sasaki pursuit right now, Luis Castillo, the Mets did actually call in and chime in on earlier this offseason per The Athletic. That's contrary to what Andy Martino states. Unless Andy's really referring to active dialogue, then maybe yes, the Mets chimed in on Castillo a little bit while ago. Things haven't changed since, really haven't happened since, and I wouldn't be shocked the Mets don't land a guy like Castillo. I think if the Mets land a starter outside the Sasaki sweepstakes right now, it's going to be someone that is of the echelon of either young upside controllable via trade that we've either talked about or have yet to on the platform, or someone else in the free agent market that the Mets are really willing to go there for Nick Pivetta or Jack Flaherty more than what we initially thought from the early interest that the Mets showed to the respective players this offseason. So for Hiroki Sasaki, the lack of optimism does not necessarily insinuate pessimism though either. This is just Andy saying he hasn't heard really anything on the Sasaki front with the Mets, anything that's really going to reel in a fan outside of what we know that was reported through SNY over the past couple weeks that the Sasaki's camp was believed to really admire and look up to what the Mets have with their pitching lab in particular. So we will follow along as the Sasaki sweepstakes continue. I will say from a Mets fan point of view to definitely tread on the air of caution as you're viewing this. I would say if you're going to view Roki Sasaki as a slam dunk to land anywhere, that's the wrong mindset, number one. Two, your optimism level should be cautious with the Mets. And even if Martino has nothing positive to relay on Sasaki, that does not mean that the Mets are not going to land him. And he's also the man who famously was on record throughout the entire Juan Soto sweepstakes stating how the Mets, while, they were not in bad positioning, were never really looking like the team that was going to land Juan in the end. And it goes to show what can happen through further negotiation if Sasaki gives the Mets another opportunity, if he hasn't already, to further discuss things beyond that, among other things. So all I will say is that when it comes to Sasaki, do I think he's going to land with the LA Dodgers? Yes, I think the Dodgers are the team to beat for him naturally. But do I think he's a slam dunk anywhere right now? No, not until we find out actually, reportedly, where he's finding himself landing this offseason. So you guys let me know how you feel about the Sasaki pursuit. Tanner Scott, we highlighted on the platform earlier, so we can a little bit here with Marc in a second. But outside of Tanner Scott, the offense that we're going to touch on too is very interesting on the routes the Mets may find themselves going down. Scott, thank you for the donation. I will definitely check out the email for sure. Actually, I'll just double check right now to make sure that one was sent through. All right, Scott, I do think I got your email, so I will definitely get your info if you didn't send it over already, and I will get you hooked up with that jersey, brother. Congratulations again. That's absolutely fantastic. And I love you too, DJ. Let's stop the spam a little bit, brother. I love you, though. I appreciate it. But now, guys, let's bring in our guy, Marc, because he's probably been patiently waiting at least an hour, if not an hour, at least 5 minutes, if not longer. So let's bring him in now. Okay, Marc, you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you. You hear me?
I hear you fantastically.
Beautiful.
How you doing, my man?
Doing good, dude. Doing good. Yeah, I wasn't waiting here an hour. I want that to be known. It
was
a
weren't
couple
waiting
minutes.
an hour. That's just me being tongue-tied because I've been on the run all day long today. But, Marc, let's deep dive right into this. Everybody, you know Marc, Mets Stuff Podcast, Draft Neck Marc. You know the drill by now. Make sure to check him out if you haven't already. But, Marc, we got plenty to deep dive because I want Roki Sasaki. You want Roki Sasaki. We're not feeling too optimistic about that right now. But how much are you buying into the latest from Andy Martino from everything we just relayed?
I'm buying into it probably more than I'm not. I didn't think that the Mets really were going to ever be one of the front runners for Sasaki. I think we're one of the 5 landing spots for him. But similarly to a lot of the reports and tweets that you've been seeing, just on like percentages and, kind of confidence of Sasaki, I thought the Mets were like an under 10% chance type team. I think we had a better chance than, like I said, 27 teams in Major League Baseball, but it still really comes down to the Dodgers and the Padres to me, and maybe even like the Angels is maybe a sneaky team. I just think it's hard for someone that's not on the West Coast, or for a Japanese player like him, who's been very open about wanting to be like, in the past, we've heard reports of him wanting to be a Dodger. We know he has that relationship with Yu Darvish. We know Kikuchi's in LA with the Angels. We know that the Rangers are a team that's involved as well. I don't see the Mets as one of the 3 favorites, but I don't think they're out per se.
Yeah, I don't think they're out either, and I think it's important to always highlight what we're hearing now is not necessarily what we're going to be hearing a day later. And the information that's being relayed by either Andy or others that also could be delayed info too, because I think a lot of times we see that, oh, a report just comes out and then seconds later we find out this bombshell that actually is accurate that people were just behind on. So this is an ever-flowing situation throughout the course of the offseason, but it was interesting to me that contrary to what we saw Jeff Passan highlight in his article from a day ago, not talking about starters is the case of Andy here. Do you think that that holds true, or are you kind of leaning more what Passan at least threw out there yesterday that the Mets are still actively pursuing one?
I think the Mets are definitely still looking at guys. I think it's always a price point thing with the rest of the market. Like, I don't expect us to be after a Flaherty or any of those guys that are going to be looking for multiple years. But I mean, I think the Mets would still kick the tires on even just Jose Quintana, those kind of players, because
like a reunion there.
yeah, reunion there on a 1-year deal where you're dirt cheap. I know like Griffin Canning, McGill, Paul Blackburn are all fighting for that last spot. It never hurts to throw another guy into that conversation as well. We know there's going to be tons of injuries. We know that the Mets can never have too many arms. I think they're looking on the more budget side route, and Sasaki's probably their number one guy in terms of actual talent. But yeah, I don't expect the Mets to be done on any kind of aspects right now. David Stearns is not really that kind of guy to just close shop because he feels like the roster is okay with where it's at now. We saw last year even the Mets were not done spending until they were done spending. Like it's not a thing where Stearns, he's too smart to be like, no, like if a good deal comes across the board and works for the Mets, he's going to make it happen.
Yeah, and one thing that I think a lot of fans, and at times myself, because I really do buy in at times to certain things over others, but
Sure.
Stearns has been this guy that many have thought from everything we've seen during his time in Milwaukee that he isn't going to spend on relievers. He ain't going to go multiple years. He ain't going to go multiple years for a starter unless there's an exception. And I think the same way that there was an exception for the Yoshinobu Yamamotos from an offseason ago, and now this offseason to a degree with players like Juan Soto, for example, is the same way how potentially a guy bullpen-wise and Tanner Scott could be that exception on really getting a little uncomfortable from what David Stearns is typically accustomed to doing. So what's your thoughts on Tanner Scott and the Mets having already met him reportedly, and ultimately the potential of landing him? Because as Andy Martino noted, a short-term high AAV deal where apparently Scott wants a right around 20 mil AAV. He wants a starter-type contract. He feels like he deserves that payday, and I think to an extent I agree, because pitchers are giving us less and less starters, and the fact that he gave you 72 innings last season and roughly 70 the year prior, I think is something to make note of. But even then, at what point do you think the Mets will draw the line with someone like Scott versus them saying, okay, the Dodgers and Braves, they really want this guy. He's a flame-throwing southpaw. He checks off every box for us and would kill us on another team of a rival. How do you feel about that?
I mean, there's no doubt Tanner Scott would be an amazing addition. Like, the dude is disgusting. Last year, his K rates were through the roof. He's going to walk some guys, but it doesn't really matter because no one puts the ball in play. Nobody hits the ball hard. He gets a ton of ground balls. It fits really well with this Mets roster build. We have good infield defense. He's a guy that would make sense. High strikeouts, high walk rate. That's the kind of pitcher we go after. I'm not interested in a multi-year deal, so if that's the case, I think you got to stay away. We've already committed a lot of money to Edwin Diaz in the bullpen, and as good as Edwin Diaz is, don't love paying a closer $20+ million a year. So if we were to give Tanner Scott that kind of money, I do expect it would be that 1-year deal. And honestly, at that point, F it. We're going for the World Series. Clearly, that's the move that you think separates you and makes you even better as a team and pushes you to another level, because giving that much money to a reliever in general is insane. Giving it to a guy like Tanner Scott, who's disgusting, it's got to be a 1-year deal. Anything over that, and you're starting to go into like that even $15 to $20 million range over a couple seasons, I don't feel that comfortable giving it to a reliever, honestly.
Yeah, I don't feel comfortable with it either. I mean, as much as I love Edwin, I think there's no denying that contract still has a way of grading out sour, especially given how it started, unfortunately, the worst way possible. But Scott, whether you invest in him on a 3-4 year deal, that high AAV, I can see the pessimism there for a guy that, mind you, he didn't break out right away. He was one of these guys that's really blossomed the past 2+ years in Miami. He was in Baltimore for a bit, fluctuated with his success there, went over to Miami, really found the best out of his game in a peak prime of his career now, and he is the hottest commodity among relievers out there, and for great reason, right? Sadly, with Brooks Raley going down with injury just after a couple games last season, the Mets were really never able to find that true southpaw in their bullpen. Now, if you land Scott, you not only fill that need, you fill it better than probably anyone else in Major League Baseball. So I think for me, what I'm most curious about is how far are the Mets willing to go for Tanner Scott, right? Because you say 1-year deal, that's probably most you're comfortable with. But what if the LA Dodgers throw a 2-year deal, maybe with a 3rd-year option? Maybe there's deferred money involved. What if the Braves did the format similarly, as they desperately want to add more bullpen and starter help this offseason? If that is the kind of thing that's being thrown out there, I have to imagine Steve Cohen and David Stearns would have a further emphasis to say, hey, maybe we should get further uncomfortable here because we really want to make sure this guy doesn't go elsewhere.
I don't buy that. I just don't think I don't think that's the way to run a team, because someone that you're competing with is going after somebody. I think you should be doing what you feel comfortable with as an organization. If you think that Tanner Scott, like, okay, 2 years, sure. If you think Tanner Scott, 2 years, $35 million, let's just throw that out, which would be an insane amount of money. But if he's asking for 20 for one, could drop it down. I think that is like the absolute furthest you could go. But I don't think that the Braves or Dodgers going after someone should be the reason why you feel more inclined to get him. You don't want to double down on mistakes. We've taken some bad contracts over the last few years. I don't want to spend $15 million a year on another reliever right now. Like, it's not the most sensible decision. And to be fair, as insane as the Mets bullpen was last year, they were still not that bad. Like, I know people freak out about the walks, and there was no big names in there.
And we watched it. We saw how bad it was at times. It was terrible.
I'm totally okay with chaos bullpen. Chaos bullpen all day. You spend all your money on the one big guy at the end, and you plug in and play pieces in there. I mean, Ryan Stanek wasn't a part of the bullpen. If you look at the bullpen from the end of the year, they weren't guys that even started on this roster. I think Diaz, and there was maybe one more guy. I can't remember the name off the top of my head.
Well, I mean, Daniil Nunez didn't even start the year with us either.
He was nowhere. Reed Garrett was, I mean, he came up like a week later after opening day, but he wasn't on the opening day roster. Like, I don't think the bullpen needs to be as black and white as a lot of Mets fans want it to be. I understand the comfortability of knowing the guys, seeing previous success. But if you do look at David Stearns, and again, he never really spends money on the bullpen, it just doesn't feel like him to give out a multi-year deal. And I don't think the Braves or Dodgers' interest should be the reason why he ends up doing something that he ultimately doesn't like to do, from what it seems based on history.
Oh, yeah. No, it definitely has him went in hand with what his historical norms have been, which is why I brought up to you on kind of how you were feeling about Scott. Because, again, I would have loved Tanner, but until we find out more on this front, I think this is more of the Mets being involved in his market and saying, hey, if you want short-term, a 1 tops 2-year deal of exactly the money that you're looking for, we got you covered. Come to Queens. Deal. You know what it's like to pitch here. We beat you up plenty. Now let's stop doing that and actually start thriving with you in our bullpen. How about that? But, guys, we got some donations to get into, so let's do that quickly, and then let's get into more, because we're going to pivot from potentially a reliever option that's the sexiest name out there versus a reliever option that also is notable but does fit the short-term bill better than most, because David Stearns has already signed north, if not right around like 20 pitchers to either waiver claim pickups or spring training invites already this offseason. So we know there's going to be a lot of guys, including my guy Tyler Zuber, shout out to him, that the Mets got from the Rays at the trade deadline last year. There's a lot of guys in-house working in the lab right now that are really going to surprise people in spring. There's going to be guys that we overreact to and say they need to be in the bullpen. Then if we have them in the bullpen, they get cooked in a week, and that's that. There's a lot of guys that you're not going to remember about, and that's okay, because the whole point is it's not about how you start, it's about how you finish. That's how Stearns is looking at the approach for the roster beginning the season. And yes, I do agree it's best to have as many boxes checked off as possible, as much uncertainty out of the way. But when there's reasons as to why there's that uncertainty and valid reasoning as to why the Mets shouldn't go too far for players, I understand that point of view as well. But guys, let's get into a couple donations here real quick, as we see Darren Rivera, great member, $2 holler earlier, says, have a Jason Bay jersey giveaway. That way I can win it. That's hilarious. One of a kind. Stephen A, not the Stephen A you're thinking of, but a Mets fan, Stephen A, with a $20 holler, says, hello, WardyNYM everyone. Pete Alonso has to be out of his mind. Alonso has to be out. He said it twice, back to back. That's how bothered he is by Alonso right now. The New York Mets to sign Bregman, move Vientos to first, and sign Santander for DH and outfield, and get Scott. I mean, let's get the best guy at every position. I tend to agree with you. Unfortunately, the Mets aren't going to do that. The Mets are going to land one, tops 2 of those players, but one is the certainty. I don't think there's any role where the Mets don't land one of Alonso, Bregman, Santander this offseason. I will be beyond shocked if that happens. But thank you again for the donation, Steven. We're going to talk about Alonso shortly. Don't you worry. A lot of nonsense going on with him right now. It's Peaceful with the $20 donation says, brother is a friend close with Pete. always had plans to leave until Magic run last year. Pete is a Yank fan and now officially greedy. 8-9 years LL. Vlad plus bullpen, and we can win the World Series right away. Ace brought in next winter. That's a fact. Okay, so let's just reel back for a second here. So you lost me at Pete's a Yank fan. When has that ever been a thing? If anything, when you think Alonso's like another, maybe not as eccentric, but maybe more of a closet Braves fan.
Dude,
I
we
mean,
spoke to him
if you think
at
of
spring training, and we're like who'd you watch growing up? He's like, I don't know, I went to Rays games. I didn't really watch baseball very much. He liked fishing and stuff. Like, he was good at baseball, but he was not like I'm sitting down watching baseball on TV kid. So I think that's the answer. Like, he just is good at baseball. He likes it, but that's not what he does in his free time. He enjoys other things.
Alonso's like ball go boom. That's how it all started for him, simply put, right?
Big strong
But
man.
thank you again. Thank you again for the donation. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. would be awesome. And I think what's going to be more exciting as we get into next offseason, because I had Jim on the channel yesterday talk about the hypothetical trade proposal that he initially came up with, where I would have done it right away for Vladimir Guerrero Jr.
What was it?
Ryan Clifford, Ronnie Mauricio, trying to think, Ryan Clifford, Ryan Mauricio, Blake Tidwell, and Tyler McGill, because that would get it done through trade values. I mean, you don't even hesitate in something like that.
I don't think the Blue Jays take that.
No, they don't. I think the Blue Jays are beyond ridiculous if they took said deal.
No,
That's why we're going to talk more about Vladdy as we get to next offseason, regardless of what happens with Alonso now. But Guerrero, just to touch on briefly to hear your thoughts on Mark before we get back in the reliever conversation, just for another couple minutes, is the Boston Red Sox love Vladdy Guerrero Jr., and that has been kind of the worst kept secret in recent years. And honestly, I don't know why I didn't touch on it yesterday when I was having the conversation, because as Nightingale reported today, how pretty much the Red Sox landing Vladdy feels like not a certainty, but a great likelihood should he hit the free agent market, not only with the Big Papi connection, but also what we see there and just how he could pave the way as like a next young, exciting star with the Red Sox versus them missing out on Juan Soto. I mean, them missing out on Soto, I think, further amplifies them going all in. And that explains maybe why you're willing to trade Tristan Cassis. If you actually are going to go the lengths to do such a thing, whether it's now or by the deadline, I can understand it a little bit. And that those same Red Sox do have a level of interest in Pete Alonso, but similarly to the Toronto Blue Jays, reportedly, is not necessarily known as to if they're far at all in any contract talks, if they've even really done anything beyond a call or two. So I'd say they're on the outsides looking in. But Vladdy Guerrero Jr., we went from a massive bid with the Yankees and to a lesser degree Boston this past offseason. I'm really curious what things are going to be like next offseason now with Vladdy. He's going to be getting at least $500 million. Red Sox going to be throwing everything at him. Does he have enough emphasis and bias to say, hey, I want to be here? Or can Steve Cohen be shelling out the big guns again and say, oh, you're 26, we can invest in you for the next 10, 15 years? Absolutely. Let's pair you with your countryman and Juan Soto, and let's win a couple rings.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the whole problem with Alonso right now is it's hard to commit to the years that he wants.
No hiccup on your end, Mark, but I don't hear your audio. Can you talk one more time for me?
Test. Can you hear me?
Give me 1 second. I'm going to try to troubleshoot it. If not, I'm going to call you because that's the alternative that we've done in the past.
Okay. You're good. Interesting.
One more second. Hold on.
Mm-hmm.
In the meantime, before I get Mark's audio figured out, which is a hiccup on my end, not his, everybody, I do have to ask everyone in the live show right now in our replay, if you guys had to necessarily pick the future of Mets first base of Alonso or Vladdy, I would love both, obviously, after a year with Alonso, should they bring him back. But if you had to pick between the two, which one are you more in favor of and why? Let us hear in the comments, and our replay viewers in the comments down below. Thank you guys so much for that. Okay, Mark, could you do me a favor and go out and then come back in quick?
Yep.
Thank you. Check. Okay. Yeah, now you're coming through my desktop. So
Hit
bizarre.
hit the mic button, the drop down on the mic.
Yeah, hold on. For you or for me? For you, obviously.
No, for you.
For me,
Hit,
okay.
yeah, hit the little caret on the mic. What does that have for your speaker?
It has exactly what I had prior. I just did unplug and replug in
Huh.
hopes that would get her figured out.
Interesting.
Yeah, no, it's very bizarre because now that you're through desktop audio, they're not going to be. Wait, they're saying we hear you?
They can hear me. All right.
Wait, hold on. Can you guys hear Marc fine? I'll be shook if you guys can hear. I don't even have my desktop audio on.
That's so bizarre.
That's actually really trippy. Oh, all right, bet. All right, whatever. All right, so what were we talking? We were talking about Vladdy, right?
Oh yeah, I was saying I think that's the whole holdup right now with Alonso is the fact that like it's just hard to commit what he wants, what he's asking for right now when Vlad Jr. is available and he's so much better.
Right, exactly. And we would all love Vladdy. I mean, who wouldn't?
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't
Spin 'em
realize.
both.
I knew he was young, but I didn't realize he was only 25. Like he's just like Soto's
Yeah.
situation again. So I definitely see the appeal there for sure. But all right, guys. Now, before we talk a little bit more on Alonso and all the nonsense that came out with him today, and nonsense to some, to others, it could be a different feel, and that's fine. But we do have another reliever here, and this is one that I've been beating the drum for hell on. No, we're not talking about Andrew Chafin. That died a year and a half ago when I knew he's never going to be a Met as much as I'd like him to be. But a guy that I think could be a Met is someone who has been a New York Met before, and that is none other than our coveted Mr. David Robertson. Let me hear, are you for a D-Rob reunion? And secondly, how likely do you think it is to actually happen?
I'm in for a reunion. He was great last year. He was like low key incredible. I think he was running a K rate like what near 35%. Yeah, 33% K rate, 9% walk rate.
4K per 9. He was disgusting.
Yeah, like he was really really good, and he's a guy who. What did he get paid last year? I think he got like 10 million, I want to say, last season. Yeah, or he got $10 million exactly last year from the Rangers. He got a buyout, so he already got 1.5 million, which means he's probably not going to need the $10 million contract. Yeah, $6, $7, $8 million for 1 year for David Robertson. Super in on that. We know he can pitch in New York. We know the stuff still plays right now. I would love a David Robertson reunion. That to me would be almost as good as getting like a Tanner Scott in a way, just because money per value, you're going to be tough to find a guy like that. And I think David Robertson, if I'm not mistaken, does decent against left-handed batters. Yeah, he's great against left-handed batters because of that cutter. So it's like, I would rather give less money to a guy who still gets lefties out. Tanner Scott's better. There's no doubt about that, but it's the value per price. And for the Mets team that's spending so much money already, I'd rather put that money towards big guys that are going to play more than one inning a game, maybe.
I told everyone in the beginning of the offseason that if the Mets are going to add anything of note to the bullpen, don't expect to be more than one, tops two names of like, oh, we know for certain who that guy is, and they're good. Everyone else is going to be a lot of these names that you kind of throw out the wall, not to see what necessarily sticks, but just a lot of names that you don't necessarily know as an average baseball fan and what you're getting unless you do a little bit of deep dive like we do on the platform. But Robertson, I want him for the simple fact of he never got a chance to be in the role that he was supposed to be in the Mets from the start. Can we finally have him be the setup man to Edwin Diaz and not have to defer to him to be the starting closer right away to begin the season? Like, we saw him, again, go leaps and bounds above expectations of when that happened and really helped the Mets bullpen when we all thought that it was completely, and the year was cooked when Diaz went down, but Robertson was one of those few bright spots in the first half before we dealt him in Miami. And you could tell he wasn't comfortable in Miami, just didn't transition or fare well there to the same degree, but he knows what it takes to win New York. He's won it all with the Yanks. He's had numerous deep playoff runs. The fastball sits mid-90s. You love everything about the breaking and off-speed pitches. Literally nothing has changed about him pretty much to this point. And even when he was out for like a year or so with injury, it didn't change him. We saw him with some key outings for the Tampa Bay Rays in playoffs, and I'm looking, I'm like, who is that? I'm like, oh my God, it's David Robertson. He's back. So yeah, bring D-Rob back. And if you do want to separate him from Scott, where there is something to take advantage of with Rob that he's better at, you could say that, hey, he has the experience. He's done this time and time again. With Tanner Scott, we don't know how he's going to handle those high leverage situations in a big market. He went from Miami to San Diego, and obviously with the Padres, he still had success, but how is that going to equate in crunch time down the stretch in a postseason? You know, that's one of those things that we'll continue to find out should Scott land with a big market team like the Mets versus others in years past. But now, going from David Robertson, everybody, and I definitely want to know how you guys feel in the chat for D-Rob. There was another name thrown out there outside of Chris Martin, who signed earlier today with the Texas Rangers on a one-year $5.5 million deal. And that one other name that was thrown out there from Mike Puma a couple days ago was Tommy Kahnle. Kahnle had a good success that we saw this past year with the Yankees. Another one of these kind of ageless wonders, if you will. He's continued to be well as long as he's been healthy. Give me one more second here.
Yep.
Okay, we're all good. All right. But yeah, Tommy Kahnle would be an interesting fit. Again, another New York guy and who worked with Desi Driscoll all of last season. So if you want to rekindle that relationship, have him stay in New York, kind of like a Severino vibe going on, I'm in favor of that happening as well if it's not going to be someone like Robertson.
Yeah, Tommy Kahnle, like weirdly friendly with the guy. I've like been on Discord with him before.
Oh,
He's a character. He's nuts. He's really good too. He's a good pitcher. The things that I know about him, he loves the Yankees. Like, he loves that place. If they want him back, that's probably where he's going to go back. Like, he just loves being a New York Yankee, and he loved being a Dodger as well. Obviously, the Mets, I think the whole vibe with the Mets has changed over the last couple of years, so maybe that tone could change, or his tone could change, because he's a great pitcher. I'd love to bring him in. That changeup's one of the best changeups in all of Major League Baseball. He's a little bit crazy, which I love. And he's a fun guy. I think Mets fans would really love Tommy Kahnle because he's an insane person. The Desi Driscoll thing is definitely an interesting factor I did not consider.
Right.
Maybe he wants to follow him around. But just knowing through my conversations with Tommy Kahnle in the past, loves being a Yankee. If they want him, he'll be back.
Right. And he's always been one of those guys that's always going to be a Yankee. Because even when he was with the Dodgers, he was there pretty much rehabbing the entire time, and that was it. And then, bam, he's right back with the Yankees like nothing ever changed. So I agree with you on that one. And he is a big character. Something that a lot of people maybe don't know. A lot of relievers in the game are usually the ones that are like the wackiest, like the silliest, and just have the best
Streams
stories.
on Twitch.
I mean, even our friend and Trevor May, he has endless great stories to share as well, and he can be a goofball. But Kahnle's great, so I'm happy to hear that. Now, before we get on to Alonso, then we'll go from Pete a bit on Breggy, and then we'll answer some comments and wrap up the show, everybody. I do see a couple donations I'd like to highlight first, though, and that first comes from Isaac Ocasio. Isaac, thank you so much for the $5 donation. Isaac says, hey, brother, Happy New Year. 2 months ago on a live, I spoke that I feel that the Mets could get Vlad. Everyone said I was crazy. Not so crazy now. You're 100% right. Again, things change when we also just have natural rumblings that happen from others in the space, like our guy Jim at Ballcap Sports saying, hey, I'm the Blue Jays fan. Let's make a proposal for every team that could be a suitor. These things are going to happen. So much so, and the best part, Mark, I don't know if you caught this, but articles, not too credible, but like fan-sided level articles were referencing Jim, like
nice.
that, you know, like MLB Insider type thing, and it was just killing me the entire time because I'm like, Jim so just sat there one day and was like, let's see what we can chef up on trade values. That's all.
What's a YouTube video I can make?
That's exactly it. But I love it. All right, Isaac, thank you for the donation. Let's see. Leo with the $5 haul says Vlad 100%. They're both around the same age with great production. We can build around our core. I'm assuming that Leo's referring to both Vlad and Soto, and we can build around our core for other players. No one will touch us. I will say this: with the route the Mets are going, especially with the heavy influx of continued Dominican, Puerto Rican, Venezuelan vibes, just on that look alone, I do see a world where it does make more sense to have Vladimir Guerrero Jr. for just obvious reasons going forward. Because if you do get him, you pair him with Soto, Lindor and Nimmo being like your oldest veterans on the team is exactly what you want. Then you have your young core with Vientos, who did have, I will say, a tremendous year. Also had a little bit of luck on his side. So how does Vientos look in 2025 is a big question that I'm excited about. Alvarez is the big one that no one's talking about. I'm going to beat this damn drum. He should have had 30 bombs last year, but the thumb, LA, cooked him. Was never the same. He'll be healthy. He'll be ready. Alvarez is going to have a big year for the Mets. And for those reasons as well, I would love to see the Vladdy connection happen. And Leo, thank you so much for the donation too. But all right, Pete Alonso, Scott Boras is using the Prince Fielder contract as an example on how to go about the Alonso sweepstakes. Now, the crazy thing is like, I know Pete didn't just tell Scott verbatim, like, hey, this is the contract that we should tell every team that we're eyeing right now. I know this is Scott's job. But at what point, if you're Pete Alonso, do you say, okay, maybe we're not trending in the right direction? Because pro, it's only January 7th. This can drag out another month, and there won't be any issue. Con, we've seen how things have dragged out with Scott Boras' clients in recent years, and it's hurt the client more than it's favored them, unless they've been able to handle and have been okay with the Matt Chapmans, the Blake Snells, etc., on getting those short-term contracts and then banking on getting a long-term out of it in hopes that you have a strong one-year season, right? So what's your thoughts on the latest with Alonso, on his sweepstakes, on how the Mets probably don't want to go beyond 3, maybe 4 years, and for Pete, he's probably stuck in that 6-7 year range still, like Bregman, and there just is not a team that's going to be willing to go there as of now.
No, I mean, Pete's definitely kicking himself for not taking that deal that Billy Epler gave right before he left, because that deal is the best he's ever going to get. There's no world where Pete Alonso gets the Prince Fielder contract. You look at those two players. Prince Fielder was an MVP candidate, three out of
the... He was like a Vladdy Guerrero Jr. in comparison, especially
he was
on
disgusting.
Age.
He had a 900 OPS in a 6-year stretch of him coming up. Alonso is still very good. This is not anything to detract from Pete Alonso being a good player, but Pete is not the caliber of player that Prince Fielder was. Prince Fielder was a little bit defied the position a bit because he really was just so damn good at the plate, so disgustingly good. He was hitting 50 homers and driving in 140 with a 900 OPS.
Yeah, like a high contact hitter consistently.
He walked more than he struck out a couple of years. Like he was a freak. He was disgusting. And Pete's 30? He's going to be 30 next year. Prince Fielder was going to be 28 when he signed this contract. So an extra 2 years younger with better production. I know what they're doing. We know what Scott Boras and Alonso's camp are doing. They're trying to draw up the price. They're trying to make the Mets sweat. The Mets are the only team that makes sense. Anybody who else comes in and gets Pete Alonso is going to overpay for him, and it might not age well, which is why the Mets are not doing it. I think there's always something, and this will be the most defamatory thing I say about Pete, because I still want him back so badly with this team. I think the Mets need Pete Alonso. I think he does a lot for this lineup and changes the outlook of this team in 2025. But there's something where the team that's had him is not willing to give him this long-term contract based on the fear of what that could look like.
Shouldn't I think that fear you as a fan?
I think that should fear you as a fan, and I think that speaks volumes to teams around the league of the team that had this guy around and saw the greatness of him is not willing to give him what is not really an insane contract money-wise, like 6 years and he wants $25 million a year. Like, that's not astronomical money. But the Mets are like, no, we want to do less. I think that speaks something to what the perception is of Pete Alonso, not right now, but what he's going to look like when he's 33, 34, 35 years old. And that's the concern. That's the only reason the Mets and the Pete have not signed yet is a difference in years. I think money-wise, AAV, they're in the exact same spot.
So, in simple terms, what the Mets fear is something that a lot of teams have feared from products we saw in the juice baseball era that ended after the 2019 season. And that is a lot of first base DH types that were absolutely raking home runs for days. But as soon as we came back down to reality, the baseballs weren't as juiced. We saw the OBP continue to plummet. We saw the slugging, while it was strong, not being exactly the same year by year that we'd hope. And a lot of guys that honestly, that profile like Alonso usually die out over the next couple of years. That's where we have a tricky problem, because Alonso's like the cream of the crop of replaceable slugging first baseman. Like, he's at the top of the list of what his profile is, right? He's separated himself a bit, but if you kick out that 2019 rookie season, not that you should completely ignore it, but I really think there's something to be said on how numbers were up until, 2020, 2021, and just how vastly different they are. If we look at the pure production for Alonso on a year-by-year basis from 2021 to now, that right there is why the Mets are not at all going to be sniffing 5, 6, 7 years for Alonso right now.
Yeah, I mean, he is a 35 to 45 a year home run guy, which is fantastic. That's great. He's going to drive in 100+ runs because the Mets lineup was getting on base a ton in front of him. Those are all things that are great. But like you said, since that 2019, 2020, 2021 year, he's been about a 25 to 30% better than league average hitter, which is still great. But can you get that for less value? Can you get something similar to that, especially when you insert a Juan Soto into this lineup, who's the best Mets hitter best hitter the Mets have seen in quite some time? So that's what's keeping them away. It's the money of the years. It's just, I know a lot of people want to call Pete greedy for asking for that much. I think that's also ridiculous. Like, go get your money. If someone's going to pay it to you, who cares? Pete Alonso should not take a discount to be with the New York Mets. Just because he had great times here, I don't think he should take a discount to be here. I never think players should. He doesn't owe them anything. But
that I agree.
I would love to see him back. I'd love to see them have a deal that works out for both, because it will hurt me if Pete Alonso does not finish his career, or at least doesn't play the next 3-4 seasons as a New York Met. He deserves to be here.
Yeah, if Alonso's in any uniform that's not a Met, it's just going to feel wrong. Like, it's just going to feel sacrilegious. And a part of me feels like if that were to happen, it also could, to a degree, not derail Alonso's career, but really change kind of what the initial thought process was behind him. Like, we viewed Alonso as this long-term homegrown first base talent. He's one of those key homegrown guys that you got to keep until he's in his mid to late 30s. And you're hoping that, given the fact that he plays first base / can DH, even though he's stubborn, doesn't want to, that will change over time naturally for him as the defense gets worse. You have to look at him and say, this guy has done so much for the organization. It would be a perfect fit to just bring him back and to continue to roll out with that power consistently. But from what we've seen over the past couple of years, regardless on the Scott Boras added pressure this past season or not, the numbers are what they are, and teams have to evaluate them for what they are and how they project. David Stearns is one of the better guys in the game that we see from the National League, especially on projections, on how a guy is going to look over the next couple of years. If he's stubborn and saying, I cannot go past 3 years for you, Pete, it's not just because of the market shrinking greatly for him, but it's because of why it did. And that's what has led us to this point. So great stuff there on Alonso. I appreciate it, Marc. And before we get out of here, just 2 more tidbits for you. One on Bregman. Then we'll talk about everyone's favorite outfield option, Alex Verdugo.
Yeah, what is that? What is that?
Okay, so I'll spoil it for you quick, and then we'll talk about it more. No one should be shocked that the Mets are in on Alex Verdugo. The
I
Mets
am shocked.
were literally, Mets were this close to landing Alex Verdugo last offseason. I know that from people, again, with strong sources. They really like him. They like his versatility. We'll talk about why Verdugo could be a fit, and we'll talk about why in God's name Verdugo should not come to the Mets. We'll get into all that in just a second, but it's a whirlwind. We do got more donations we'll get to, so let's touch on them real quick, everybody. Again, thank you guys kindly for them. It really does mean a lot. But we see here on the donations initially, let's see here, from my man Texas, how much will it be if, hold on one second. Problem is that I took the photo, but it was too quick, and it's a live photo. So I'm trying to just crop it in the time where, hold on.
That Verdugo stuff shook me. I can't even wrap my head around
right
it.
Before the stream too. I was like, oh, okay.
It's like, oh, I got opinions on this.
Yeah. So how much fun will it be if lunatic Jesse Winker takes lunatic Drew Gilbert under the wing? I love that. I mean, we love Jesse. We want a Jesse Winker reunion to happen. Drew Gilbert is sicko that we love as well, that we hope blossoms as a future center fielder, if not corner fielder, for our New York Mets. Absolutely in favor of that. Appreciate that donation. Thank you so much for that. From there, we see as well, let me just make sure I didn't miss anything. We see from my guy, Carlos. Thank you so much for the $10 donation, Carlos. Carlos says, Wardy, is there a salary ceiling? No, there is not, simply put. But once you reach a certain threshold in your luxury tax, you're then taxed over 90%, which is what has happened to Steve Cohen over the past year and a half or so up until now, with a lot of money off the books. Cohen has the Bucks. Do years really matter? Absolutely, because the Mets do not want to have long-term investment in a player that could potentially impact their pursuit of other players, along with also not wanting to strap themselves in a position where they have more dead weight that they need to carry. The Mets want to carry the dead weight that they're willingly wanting to do. They don't want to do it where they feel like they're forced to, that, you know, this is what it's going to take to get Alonso, when Alonso's not a Soto type. You know, no one's crying over Juan Soto potentially not even playing the last 5+ years of his contract with the Mets because of the immediate impact he'll have, hopefully, over the next 5-10 years, along with what the kind of market is for a player like him. Alonso is not a guy that's worthy of a market and worthy of to be given a treatment. I think you could rightfully argue and say, hey, we're going to give you special treatment over every other team. It just isn't going to happen that way. And the Mets need to bat now. Let Cohen eat the back end of Pete's contract years from now. Who cares? Give Pete 125 or 5. I'm not opposed to that as long as there are opt-outs in between. Right, Mark?
Yeah, I'm fine with 5 for 125. That to me is like, listen, is it maybe a little bit too many years? Probably 2 years too many. But like at that point, I don't care because Pete's going to move to DH at some point. Like we know it. And I know we brought up him being stubborn about playing DH. Part of that is because he has people telling him that you can't be playing DH because you're going to lose money. Like that's why he doesn't want to play DH.
Exactly.
When he gets paid, he's not going to give a shit where he plays. He's going to be happy to be playing. He'll be hitting behind Soto and Lindor and Nimmo. He's going to drive in 160 runs. Like, he's going to be okay.
Oh, my God. Just the thought is amazing. It really is. Okay, couple more, folks. Straight Talk with Jack Graham, $20 holla. Thank you so much, Jack. He says, thanks to Worry for the best Mets stream. Happy 2025. Same to you, my man. God bless. Thank you so much for that. Let's see here. We got at least one or two more. Isaac Ocasio with another $5 holla states. Alonso free agency is dumb to us because he's not worth that, but agent telling him he is not selfish and doesn't mean he doesn't want to be here. Reality will set in. I agree. I 100% agree. I don't think for 1 second, like nonsense from everyone's favorite Jaron, New York Mets News saying, oh, that the Mets aren't even a top 5 team for Alonso according to industry source. Buddy, where's the source? Outside your house?
Nothing. Yeah.
What is this?
I mean, he might be schizophrenic. I think he has conversations with nobody.
You think?
Yeah, I know.
Darkness, my old friend. Okay. Fred Perez, thank you so much for the new membership. I appreciate that a lot, my man. Happy to have you in here. All right, guys, I believe we're caught up. Nope, her certified hater said, nope, we got a $5 holla. Funny how the A's are keeping homegrown talent. Brent Rooker got scammed. 5 for 60, what the hell? Santander and Pete's market is cooked. They have been kind of cooked. You're not wrong with that. To shift briefly here, just for a second, a little tangent on Brent Rooker. What's your thoughts on the contract? Because for me, I see an A's team that's like, well, we're going to get penalized if we don't spend, so let's just go and do it.
Yeah, it seems like there might have been a little bit of a backdoor negotiation. If you're going to Vegas, you're going to be spending more money, and you're gonna need to keep some players. You can't keep doing this thing where you spend no money. You're the cheapest team in baseball. You can be the cheapest team, but you got to try. You got to give us something here. And to be fair, I mean, Brent Rooker's awesome. That's a great deal for the A's. Yeah. He just honestly, he became even more valuable. Like, there's not a world where that's not even a more movable contract now than it was before.
That's
just
actually
because
a great point. He could
give a couple more years,
hot trade candidate at the deadline.
You're right. he, and you might get a crazy amount back. I still don't believe he ends his contract with the A's. Like I never have. I think he's going to end up getting moved. But they've had a really good offseason. I've liked what they've done. Shout out the A's.
Yeah, no, shout out to the A's indeed, baby. And listen, shout out to the A's in the sense of the fans. And the players.
Fans, yeah, unfortunately, yeah.
Fisher, I'll get out of here. No, we'll leave it at that.
Yeah, he sucks.
Okay, so close to last year, let's touch briefly on Breggy, because while we haven't heard a lot of optimism on the Bregman front, we did hear from Nightingale today state that the Mets are a keen player for Alex Bregman, that they're still involved in his market. And interestingly enough, from what I've heard from a source on Cardinals Live, I don't know if you've seen that X account, an anonymous X account that's actually been pretty accurate what they're reporting this offseason, going back to the Jock Pearson signing with the Rangers well before it happened. And he may know for a while the Mets pursuing Bregman is real, that's legit, and they're actually considering both Bregman and Alonso. Now, there's been a lot of cold water thrown on that since then from other people in the industry. However, one thing that has been true is that the Tigers, while they may be the best fit for Bregman, when it comes down to who's going to spend the most money, that's where the Mets and the Blue Jays still find themselves involved. And that's exactly why Alex Bregman to the Mets on a Matt Chapman contract where he has an opt-out after the first year. If his market really shrinks because he wants 7, teams probably don't even want to go past 4, maybe even 5 for him. Could you see a world where the Mets do land Bregman this offseason?
Like, yes, but I don't know. He's one of those guys where I think there's a lot more smoke than there is fire with him. I get it. I can conceptualize why the Mets would be after a player like Alex Bregman. He is very much a David Stearns prototype player of walks, doesn't strike out, puts the ball in play, good defense, has some pop in the bat. He wouldn't actually really even profile that poorly in Citi Field with his hit profile and how he hits the ball, but it just doesn't it doesn't feel very real to me. I don't know. This is the weird one that I can't really wrap my head around. And I have a very weird gut feeling that one, I don't necessarily want him. I just would prefer getting Pete Alonso, even for the same contract, whatever you give. I'd rather just give it to Pete at that point because I think he does more to this lineup than Bregman does. And then two, there's got to be a team that needs Bregman more than the Mets do. Like I think of other rosters, I'm like, you're a better fit there. Like he should be playing for that team, not as much the Mets. I don't know. And I just don't like the idea of Bregman over Alonso. That's truthfully what it comes down to. Even though Bregman's a better player, I think Pete does more for the Mets than Bregman does, if that makes any sense.
I agree with that, as long as it wouldn't be one of those things where the Mets sign Bregman knowing full well that they're going to do everything in their power to land Guerrero next offseason. Like, if that was the case and we're shifting Vientos to first, at least just for this year,
that's fine.
Like, I can live with that if knowing that will be the eventual pursuit.
Correct.
But without that certainty right now, even though I feel like it will be a certainty at some point, that is exactly why you got to go with the homegrown talent between the two. But again, if there's a role where the Mets could somehow make it work because of Bregman's market really say shrinking, he waited too long, and then he's going to settle for a deal with an opt-out and hopefully have a big year. It would make less sense for the Mets unless they just throw out the most obnoxious AAV, and that's where he's like, I have to go here, just because ballpark-wise, if he really wants to inflate the offensive numbers, he will have more luck going to a team short-term like the Boston Red Sox, for example, in which the talks that's been going on with them is Nolan Arenado is only willing to be traded to a couple teams. The Mets are one of them, but we don't want that right now. In the case of the Red Sox, they like Bregman a lot. Bregman seems to like there would be a nice fit, but they're too far apart on years naturally, and Arenado could be a fit. Potentially, the last fit for him could be the Boston Red Sox this offseason. So Boston's pursuit, where Arenado falls, kind of goes in hand with the Bregman situation here as well. So we're definitely going to be on figuring that out sooner rather than later in the case of Bregman, Arenado, and others this offseason. And Mark, before we get on to Verdugo to then wrap up the live show, I just have to do something real quick. So just give me a second. Be right back.
Go for it. I'll entertain the people. How we doing?
I appreciate it.
How we doing, YouTube chat? How we looking over there? Now's your chance to get me to answer a question. Top 3 favorite Mets from Noah Abate. We've got, in no particular order, well, actually in particular order. Number 1, Mike Piazza. Number 2, David Wright. Number 3, Francisco Lindor. I think those are pretty good picks. Alex, unfortunately, I could wait for Wardy for that one. Vladdy is getting weight every season. I don't understand that one. Stop saying Verdugo. God, I don't want him. I so don't want Alex Verdugo. R.I.P. Brian Mattis. Yeah, that's like awful, awful news. Very, very young. Terrible to hear. What else do we got going on? What's up, D? Appreciate you. Can't even see me? Well, you can hear my voice. How about that? You can hear my voice. Even better. Steve Land. Thank you, dude. Yoshima, what's good? Where am I sitting? July 19th? My tickets are like where are my season tickets at? Which was an insane purchase that I probably shouldn't have done, but what is the game? What is it called? Where do you find your what's the MLB something? What is it called? MLB. Is it just MLB Ballpark? That's what the app's called. Sign Santander and Scott. I truthfully don't want Anthony Santander. He doesn't really interest me at all. My tickets are section 128, row 8. That's where I'll be sitting. You got your David Wright game tickets? Yeah, it should be a sick one. 4 for 120 for Pete. Phil DeLuca. I'd be all over that, man. Vlad is literally the bottom of the league in speed. Who cares? Have you seen how the guy can hit? What are we talking about, guys? You know, Pete's not fast, right? You know, Albert Pujols was one of the slowest players. I'm okay with it. What else do we got here?
Mark,
would I trade for Vlad
so
Jr.?
much
Yes.
for entertaining the chat. That was
You're
perfect.
welcome. You're welcome. I got you.
Yeah, no, Shea needed a bottle. He woke up. He went to bed at 7. He woke up now. Just made
always
him a bottle.
Always gets importance over the stream every time.
Always.
Good dad, Wardy.
Yes, that's what we're trying to do here, baby. Okay, last but not least, we talked on Breggy, so we'll see what happens there with him. But now, guys, let's get into the final topic, the one I know you've been chopping on the bit all off season long to talk about. That's Alex Bregman. So I'm not Alex Bregman. I'm sorry. to an extent, yes, but no. Let's be realistic for a second. Let's get an Alex Verdugo. Yes, Mr. Verdugo. The Mets are among the team showing interest in Alex Verdugo. Doesn't mean that they're going to land him. Alex Verdugo was below league average as a batter by roughly 20% last season, was like 83rd WRC plus or so, 13 home runs, north of right around 70 RBIs or so. Again, in a Yankees lineup that was up and down throughout the year. Verdugo was really hot in the first half. Absolute garbage is what it at least felt like from an outsider's point of view in the second half. And he's a guy that certainly can bring versatility. He's only 28, can play all outfield positions, even though he's better in the corner. Not a huge defensive upside, but has that versatility. Can run solid for you at times on the bags, but you're getting a guy that is known actually for his gap-to-gap ability. Mark, I'm not sure exactly how familiar you are with Verdugo's game, but when he's been at his best during his time with the Red Sox, he was literally one of the better left-handed hitters in all Major League Baseball and going gap-to-gap for those doubles. So that's one of those things I'm sure the Mets look at to a degree in pursuing him. He fits the role of a platoon DH/outfield fit that could actually handle the corner outfield at times out there. Is certainly a tier lower than the Anthony Santanders when we look at bats in the market. And I think to a degree you could rightfully argue is a downgrade from even Jesse Winker from the vibes and the potential team fit in that similar role. So what's your thoughts and pessimism on the Alex Verdugo hunt right now?
Thumbs down. What is this? I think this would be a massive mistake. I think this would be a horrendous move. I cannot rationalize signing Alex Verdugo, who came off easily the worst season of his career in the prime years of his season in a lineup with guys named Juan Soto and Aaron Judge. He couldn't be the leadoff hitter. They needed him to be. He couldn't do it. Get him out of here. I do not want Alex Verdugo. I cannot watch this guy play baseball for the Mets next year. I don't understand it. I'll be honest. I don't think it makes any sense. You're like, unless they think Drew Gilbert is so not even close to ready, that would maybe be the one thing. But like, we still have Marte who's making $20 million a year. Give him how much? I don't think he's actually worse than Alex Verdugo almost at all. I think he's a better option than Verdugo right now.
Right. I think the thought process would be that you're platooning them in DH at / corner outfield in a way that you don't love.
Alex Verdugo if Alex Verdugo gets any at-bats for the DH, more than 5 games at DH for the New York Mets in 2025, I might do something stupid. Because like you can't Mets fans went berserk when Daniel Vogelback was the DH and the guy had like a 90 WRC plus. Alex Verdugo, terrible hitter last year. Awful hitter last year. The year before was below league average. At his peak back in 2020, again, in 53 games. That's the only time he's really ever been a above league average hitter by a significant amount. This one would make me scratch my head and go, what does David Stern see? I can't see it. I don't see it at all. I think this would be a horrendous move. This would be the one time I'd be like, David Stern's disaster class.
Disaster class. There you go. And then Alex Verdugo bounces back, has a 120 WRC
and I'll
plus
eat my words.
Exactly. But just to kind of compare and contrast with Jesse Winker, which is what the Mets would not be doing if they brought in Verdugo. Yes. It would be to not bring in Jesse. Winker is 14 home runs, 58 RBIs, 63 runs scored. We did see the numbers naturally drop off from the Nationals to the Mets across the board because at the deadline, like his OBP was over 370, is looking great. The average was more in the 270 range, whereas he finished with a 253 on the year. Slugging was up, but let's also bear in mind context on going from an everyday player with the Nationals to a platoon role with the Mets where you weren't guaranteed the same playing time every single day. I think that's something to make note of. And how he was able to adjust that role, the aura, the vibes, everything from the home run heroics to slamming that helmet down to begin that Mets run where they had their West Coast trip after that homestand against the Orioles. Then they were in Arizona, San Diego, Chicago like it was yesterday, the playoff heroics as well. And Jesse Winker's numbers, he only has one season over the past 5-6 years, if I'm not mistaken, where he was below league average. And that was because of the Brewers when he wasn't healthy. So when you look at his splits, even last year, high leverage, 2 out, runner scoring position situation, the guy was literally one of the best on the Mets. Like 900 plus OPS in all those areas. He was tremendous. I just don't understand why Jesse Winker hasn't happened yet if the Mets aren't seeking something bigger. Because you swung and missed on Jock. You swung and missed on Tio. What do those guys have in common, Mark? They're both better than Jesse Winker.
Correct. Yeah, I think the reason there's nothing with Jesse Winker is there's no reason to. Like, if you lose Jesse Winker, you don't lose sleep over it. And if he's still available on March 15th, when you're 2 weeks away from the season, you go,
Bang.
He's ready to go. This guy can just pick up a bat and start hitting. Like, I don't think there's, again, like, this is classic because nothing's going on in baseball. So we have to talk about something, and fans love to overreact. But like, the fact that the Mets haven't really been linked to Jesse Winker at all, I think has no impact on their ability to sign him tomorrow, a month from now, in March, trade for him at the deadline. Like, he is a 1-year deal player with a market that is extremely limited because there are better players who can do more. He's a vibes guy with some really, really good hit tools, but he's a DH at the end of the day. He's awful in the outfield. So when Anthony Santander is available, you're not signing Jesse Winker. That's kind of how it goes for most of these teams here.
Yep, and you can, because if the Mets were to sign Jesse now, and then Santander's market shrinks where he signs a top 3-year deal, I'd imagine the Mets would be willing to pounce there. They really just don't want to get. I mean, 3, I feel like might be too much for Santander, but at least a 2-year deal, say high AAV. Like, if he's willing to sign somewhere where he can try to win right away outside of Baltimore, get a big payday, pair with Soto and everyone else in the slab, sign me up. But Santander also, funny enough, does kind of profile better on the initial numbers than Winker defensively, but I have so much issues with Santander as an outfielder.
He's a bad outfielder.
He's just bad. You know, like, he's not like Jorge Soler bad, but like I put them in the same class. Just garbage. I don't want to see him out there because I know it's going to be good. So if Santander is going to be a predominant DH option, then that limits Marte, so then that makes him more expendable that you would then trade, I'd imagine. I threw this out there too, Mark, and we'll just wrap up the show now with this. I think this is a perfect way to end it. In my live stream and content over the past couple of days, I talked about how if the Mets really are going to trade Starling Marte for a reliever, why not F around and see if the Pittsburgh Pirates are going to give up Bednar after a bad year?
I honestly think the reason they won't was just because he's free, and like, you're not going to give up a free reliever to pay Starling Marte $20 million.
But Marte can finish his career with the Pirates then.
They don't give a shit.
The whole contract.
Yeah, they got Andrew McCutchen. That's all they care about is that McCutchen is back. That's an organization that truthfully does not care about their fans in the slightest, it seems like. I mean, it's good people inside the Pirates org, but if they cared about their fans, they would be jumping on this window where they have all this free, cheap pitching and get some, Pete Alonso should be a Pittsburgh Pirate. I'm just going to say that. Pete Alonso should be a Pittsburgh Pirate. That's the only team.
I mean, he should be a Seattle Mariner, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, hit them too. But like, my God, Pete would do numbers in Pittsburgh. He would be one of their greatest players ever. Like, they would retire his number when he's done.
Oh, absolutely.
But they don't spend money. So there's no way they take on Starling Marte's money. If they take him for free, if we pay him, maybe that opens the door a little bit more. But if it's to dump the money of Marte, there's no shot.
No. We would be eating Marte's contract. That would be the point.
Maybe there's a world. Bednar had some concerningly bad things happen though last year. That makes me go, I don't really know if I want him.
Yeah, it's funny because when you think of Bednar, like, the guy basically got like the yips and couldn't handle small market Pittsburgh. How can he handle the Mets if he gets cooked? But here's why I think it could work so well, simply put, is because Bednar, one who still has 2 years left on his contract, right? He's making $4.5 million, I think, this year through Arbor. So he is coming off of a down year. But if you look at the expected numbers, far better than the baseline ERA at like 5.77. He was just over 4 as ERA. His first like really like bad year in a while, Bednar, really, since kind of getting himself started as one of the more dominant relievers there out of the National League. But what I love about him is that we're not asking him to be the closer. So yes, there's pressure in the sense that you go from the Pirates to the New York Mets with Juan Soto and the expectation. That's a lot. So if he's already shivering in his boots, all right, we don't got to worry about you. But if he can handle that, I think he could also handle being a setup man for Edwin Diaz. Like, if you're going to go down a route where maybe you're trying to be creative on, you don't want to say spend, maybe D-Rob is going to get north of $10 million again, and you just don't want to go there for whatever reason. But you want to dump Marte, you want to free up DH room, and you know that is the best route to do it. The Pirates just made sense to me because they run as an organization that they don't care about their fans in the sense of spending, but they care in the sense of, if there is a fan favorite, they will try to reel them in and make it happen. They did it with Andrew. Marte was a fan favorite for a long time there. I loved Marte when he was I hated going up against him because he was such a pest. Yeah. But it would make a lot of sense for a guy that's capable but more injury prone. Look at that outfield. Tell me how it can't work for the Pirates. Tell me, if you look at the roster right now, why it wouldn't make sense. That's why I'm preaching it.
O'Neal Cruz, Brian Reynolds. I'll throw this one out, and it's not my credit. I got to give the credit to James here. His chaos idea, why not, is what if the Astros gave us Ryan Presley? We gave them Starling Marte. They have almost no major league outfielders right now. Their outfield is so bad. Ryan Presley is a free agent at the end of the year, do $15 or $14 million. We'll match the money so that it's even, where you're not paying anything extra. We'll take Ryan Presley and the extra $6 million to Marte. I think that's a chaos one that might just work, because Ryan Presley right now is like the 4th or 5th option in Houston, and he loves closing. He loves being a setup man. Like, he's not going to get those high leverage situations because of Abreu and Hader. James put that one out into the ether. I want to keep saying it in the world. Maybe David Stearns will hear it, call up the Astros, and see if that's available.
I like the way you think. Yeah, I think that definitely could be had for the Mets. I mean, Presley would be a nice out of this bullpen for sure, and for Marte, he'd still be going to an Astros team where they're competing. You know, it's not like they're saying, hey, you know, we don't want to be part of run anymore, especially with how weak the American League is. I just need the Astros to get hot going into playoffs so that way they can dethrone the Yankees, who think that they're, you know, the phenom, the one to beat out of the American League. There was nothing menacing after what we saw, their matchups being nothing personal, Guardians and Royals fans. Please don't take it that way. But you're the Guardians and you're the Royals in the first year of when we didn't expect you to really be much of with Stephen Vogt. You exceeded all expectations. For the Royals, I knew that you were going to be a fringe playoff team. But again, you performed as a fringe playoff team. You didn't have any power outside of Salvi. And as much as Bobby Witt Jr. is a stud, they had very little outside of that. They were heavily built on their pitching, we saw. And that got exposed there against the Yankees. And again, the Yankees didn't even play like overly stellar in those series either. The way that the Mets had like just the craziest dramatics imaginable, even when it felt like they didn't deserve to win some games, we still won them. Whereas the Yankees, they just kind of, they treaded, they got there, and then they looked completely outmatched to LA. Completely.
Yeah, they existed. That's how they made it to the World Series.
And sadly, that's all you need to do in the American League, which is why I wish the Mets were if we're in the American League right now, it'd be so much easier. All right, guys, that'll do it. Enough tangents for one night. That's Draft Neck Marc at Marc Luino. Marc, before we get out of here, any final closing statements?
Be patient, Mets fans. Pete's not going to sign until the calendar says at least February 6th. So we got a good month until we hear if Pete Alonso is going to be a Met or not.
So you're confident that we're going to go through another month of just me talking about all the updates each day of finding out, oh, it's going to be, what, a 10-year contract now?
1,000,000%. Every day that goes by is another dollar that comes off of Pete Alonso's contract for the New York Mets, where he ultimately ends up. There is no reason to rush. Spring training has not started. Nobody's reported. Who cares if you sign him today or February 7th?
That's true. And that is the Scott Boras way of thinking, with dragging out these off seasons with his top talents. Not only in the case of Alonso, wouldn't be shocked if we see a similar fate with Alex Bregman too.
Yep.
But guys, that is Marc Luino. Check him up at the Mets Stuff podcast or on the Draft Neck Marc YouTube channel, however you want to consume his content. You guys can check me out there on X at the WardyNYM X account with over 66,000 followers over there. We're going to be more active with that throughout the offseason, getting into the regular year. So check us out there. My personal is just WardyNYM. Thank you guys for watching. Peacefulness with a $10 hollow right at the buzzer. So we're going to talk about it. Wardy, I know you have been seeing chat. Shocked you're not adamant about Vlad right now. I'm not adamant about Vlad because I know that the Mets have a great chance to land him next offseason. So, like, I'm content. That's how it was with Soto, too. Like, I really wasn't breaking his sweat at any point. I was probably one of the most optimistic and, like, genuine fans. Like, I always thought that Soto to the Mets, like, felt like, if not a lock, then close to. And that's why I never wavered. So, I'm proud. I'm very proud to say that. But thank you so much for the donation. Hopefully it is Vlad next offseason. I'm going to be opposed. I just don't see it happening. Prior, Berto with the $10 holla says, Wardy, you're the truth. Thank you for giving us this awesome content on a daily basis. Hashtag get Vladdy. Everyone wants Vladdy. So, all right, get Vladdy.
Get Vladdy. There it is.
All right, guys. Love you. Have a great night. Let's go.